friends, and welcome to Adaptive Planning for Authors. I am Audrey Hughey, and first things first, I would like to thank Brian and Philip for inviting me back to Fiction Marketing Academy. I am so happy to be here, and I was so excited to share this with everybody today. So today in this presentation, I'll do a little introduction of who I am. We'll talk about you controlling your life or letting chaos control your life, adaptive planning, what that is, and how we can implement it as authors, buffers we can provide in our life to help us improve our productivity and focus on our most meaningful goals, recommended reading, and how you can get in contact with me if you have any questions. So who am I? I am a born nerd, an analyst. I was in the Army for 14 years active and reserve, and I was in defense for several more years. All that to say that I am good at synthesizing research, using data, and sharing that information. I also have been working in freelance writing since 2015. I've been doing copywriting, business to business, and business to consumer. I have written articles for magazines. I've built websites. I've been doing social media management and so much more. I've been very active in the online space and mostly with writing. I have a bachelor's in English with a concentration in writing, and I have a master's in history with a focus on the ancient and classical. My tastes in writing are just as eclectic as my tastes in reading. So why do I do this? My why is to inspire others to reclaim their agency and power in their lives so they can live as fully and with as much meaning as they desire. It's so important for me to inspire, empower, and encourage others to live their lives fully and embrace their creativity. A lot of times when I am taking on new clients, we'll talk about their schedule and we'll talk about their writing goals. And often what comes up is that they feel like their life is in chaos and there's no remedy. They feel like the chaos controls them. They feel like they are a ship lost at sea and they have no control over the direction in which they're drifting. And life can feel like that. It can feel unplannable and therefore unpredictable, especially when you get hit time and again with news, events, medical issues, accidents, whatever it is. All those things can add up to stealing your sense of power and control and agency in your own life. But you can either succumb to that and allow chaos to control your life, or you can choose to take back control. This is something that doesn't happen once, even for someone like me who is crazy about planning. It's something that I have to go through in seasons. So if you feel like you've tried before, don't be afraid to try again. Every time we try something new, or even if we try something that we did before, we are setting ourselves up for massive growth. You grow by persevering. And we have some great examples of that, including people who stopped doing the same thing every day, did something different, and finally broke through their plateaus. So Sylvester Stallone, he has this great interview online, and if you haven't seen it, reach out to me. He has this interview where he discusses what it took for him to finally buckle down and finish his script for Rocky. He plastered newspaper over the windows in his apartment. He tore the phone out of the wall. He removed his watch, his clocks. He laid bare his apartment so he would have nothing to do but write. And he determined that he would stay locked in his apartment with no visitors, no phone calls, and no breaks until he was finished with that manuscript. He had plastered the windows so that he couldn't see what time of day it was, so that he wouldn't be distracted by, oh, now it's time to sleep, or now it's time to get up, or wondering what time it was. Instead, he focused on his writing. He ate whenever he felt hungry, but otherwise wrote and finished that screenplay in reportedly 20 hours, which is phenomenal, especially considering the results. Stephen King had been writing and submitting for years. He had so many rejections at one point that, according to On Writing, his railroad spike fell out of the wall from the weight of all the rejection letters. I can't think of a better metaphor for that kind of situation where you feel like you've given everything, and yet he still continued to write while being poor and with a young family depending on him. And thankfully, his wife pulled Carrie out of the trash bin. He still persevered, and eventually he had his break. Now, on to two of my friends and clients. Nicolette Terry Mino came to me one day and she said, Audrey, I have to finish this book before my birthday. It was so important to her to hit that milestone before her next birthday, to show and prove to herself that she could do this. I knew she could do it, but it's often rare for a first-time author to hit all their deadlines. So I said, okay, I will work with you on this. I will give you the publishing path, but the first thing you need to do, you need to finish your first draft on time. Here is your deadline. How are you going to make it happen? Let's build a plan. Let's determine your schedule. Let's figure out your core working hours. When can you write? As a stay-at-home mom with two small boys, a house to take care of, being a military spouse overseas, and all the challenges that come along with that, right after finishing her education, which was also exhausting, instead of taking a break, she buckled down, she followed the plan, and she wrote. And this was no easy feat. Life was not the same day to day. Issues always came up. Issues with kids, issues with health, issues with whatever else came up, family back home, or things where she was at. No matter what happened, she continued to write. She found ways around all of the obstacles that she could have used as excuses. All of the obstacles that could have sucked the wind from her sails, she either overcame them or she worked around them. She wrote at night, she wrote in the morning, she wrote on her phone. She wrote in every spare second that she could, and she finished that book, that first draft, ahead of her deadline. And to say I'm impressed is putting it lightly. For a first-time author to hit that deadline for a book that they've been working on for years, to finally buckle down and hit that deadline that was provided to her, was just amazing to me. So I think it's pretty rare that that happens. So I said, okay, here's the publishing path. Here are the other deadlines you need to hit in order to edit, revise, proofread, polish, and prepare for publishing. These are the steps that need to be taken. And let me tell you, there was nothing that was going to stop Nikki from publishing the story that ties us. And she published a few days ahead of her birthday. It was phenomenal, the dedication she put in. And even when she had those moments of doubt, even when the editor came back and she had to look, as a first-time author, she had to look over all the red marks over her edited manuscript. She gave herself time to mope, like I recommend. We give ourselves 24 hours to feel bad, and then we get back on the horse. She did it. She took a little bit of time, and then she got right back into it. She dove in, and she nailed it. She knocked it out of the park. She got it all done, and then she published it. Worked with her cover designer, got everything she needed in order on time or ahead of time. And it was phenomenal to see that if you really want something, you will make it happen. Now, another of my friends and clients, Stephen Wurtzbauer, he had decided after years of writing, decades of writing, that he wanted to finish a book. And he'd been working on a manuscript for a while, so he got sick of it taking so long, with work being, 50 to 60 hours a week, and him being a caretaker, as well as his family depending on him. So he actually buckled down and he wrote 30,000 words a month for 3 months, despite the work and family obligations that were required of him. He buckled down and he finished that book, over 100,000 words, in 3 months. It was phenomenal to see that despite all of that, and he was somehow still getting sleep, he was able to finish this book, this first draft. More recently, he retired, hoping he would have more time to write, but his obligations seemed to grow. His caretaking obligations increased. His family needed him more. They saw they had more time and they wanted to spend more time with him. So it felt like he was left to the whim of everyone else's needs. And that he was never going to get to focus on his book because so many people needed him. And his dream of publishing this book drifted farther and farther away until it seemed lost on the horizon. After we got through the mental aspects and worked through different planning strategies, he saw it again. He found that lost hope. He found that motivation. He was tired of the same old thing and the same old result, the same old schedule where chaos ran his life. He took back control. He took back his power. And just recently, he finished the complete rewrite of that book after the help of a developmental editor. He hit it by his deadline. He persevered. Although he had in the past allowed the chaos to control his life, he is an excellent example of perseverance in the face of a long writing journey. As a family man, as a caretaker, as a person who cares and is always trying to give to others, he finally found a way to balance that, to set boundaries that allowed him to care for himself as much as he cares for others. Stephen was finally able to finish that manuscript to the satisfaction of his developmental editor by his deadline, because he took back control of his life and he no longer lets the chaos run his life. When it comes to adaptive planning, I want to describe what I mean by adaptive planning. So planning, a lot of times when people hear that term, they think of setting a plan that has to go right at every turn. And in the military, there's a saying, no plan survives first contact. And that is where the foundation of my planning principles lie, in the idea that as soon as we put that plan to action, things will change. We will acquire new information. We will experience unexpected events or receive unexpected news that changes the experience we thought we would have. So adaptive planning means that as soon as things change, you're ready to change with them without losing sight of what is most important, without giving up. So that is adaptive planning. In the military, that means we have contingency plans. Now, you don't need to get really deep into your contingency plans. Instead, as long as you always know your priorities, you will always be able to adapt your plan to fit any new news or situations. So for now, I'd like you to grab a calendar and a notebook. In your calendar, you're going to add your deadlines, appointments, events, vacations, holidays, and anything else that is already planned. And then when you dive into your day, I'd like you to start experimenting with time blocking. What times do you know for sure that you're only available for one part of your life? And what do I mean by parts of our lives? Well, open your notebook. Get your pen ready. It's time to determine your top 4 priorities in life. Now, a lot of times, your priorities might look like this. Number 1 is always self, because you can't help anyone else until you take care of yourself first. You have to put your own oxygen mask on first before you can help anyone else. And that is so true in your life. You need to take care of yourself. Second is usually family. So if you are a parent or if you have a spouse, this should be your second most important priority. Third, for many authors, is the day job. If you have a day job or a career that's really important to you, then that's going to be your third most important priority, because it pays for you to care for yourself with food, shelter, and your other various needs, and to care for your family. And it pays the bills for writing too, at least until you're putting out bestsellers on a regular basis. And then the fourth priority is usually writing. And that's not to say writing is the least important, because there are lots of other things you might want to add to your priority list. But if you have 10 priorities or 20 priorities, it's really easy to muddy the water and lose sight of what's really important. Now, think about your top 4 priorities in your life. If they are self, family, work, and writing, as I suggested, then write that down. If that doesn't apply to you, then write self for number 1 and anything afterward that does. Now, these top 4 priorities aren't activities. These are buckets. These are categories under which you can file other activities or tasks or needs. For example, for yourself, you're going to have your hygiene, your food, your health, your exercise, whatever, your meditation, any kind of self-care tasks, even if they're mundane. But you'll also have your hobbies in there. So just because gaming isn't a top 4 priority in your life doesn't mean it's not part of your self-care. Joy is part of mental well-being. So if that is something that brings you joy, then make sure you include that under your number 1 priority. Writing as a priority isn't just the act of writing. It is also research, training and learning like you're doing now, outlining, seeking inspiration for characters or settings or storylines, looking for cover designers, interviewing editors, preparing to publish, publishing, and of course marketing. All of that falls under the category or priority of writing. So don't worry, just because writing is the title of the priority doesn't mean that you won't have time to mark it. Next, in your notebook, flip to a new page and write out all of your obligations and commitments and even the things you simply want to do. And brain dump here, so you're writing until you can't think of anything else that is an obligation, a commitment, either to yourself or to other people, or even things that you just want to do. Once you have written that entire list out, then you can move on to your desires and ambitions. New page, please. Start with your ultimate, because we have to reverse engineer your goals from your ultimate end goals in order to determine what is the most important priority and what are your most meaningful goals right now. So start with that ultimate goal. Where do you want this journey to go? What is the ultimate embodiment of all your work in the most ideal sense? What about in 10 years? Where do you want to be with your writing, yourself, your family, your day job if you want to keep it for the long run? What about in 5 years? 2025? How about the rest of this year? Now, once you have those desires and goals and ambitions and all of your obligations, commitment, that entire foundation written out, we can start aligning your priorities with your planning for maximum flexibility. Refer to the previous time blocking guidance I gave you. Start looking at how you can time block your day just to build an ideal schedule. Not that it always goes ideally, but if you have an ideal schedule, then you'll always know what's important during that time. For example, between the hours of 6 and 8, Audrey's number 1 priority is getting the kids ready for school and on the bus. From 8 to 9, Audrey prepares the youngest child to be cared for. So those are all under the family category. The number 1 priority from 6 to 8 and 8 to 9 is family. And then from 9 to 12 is work. And then from 12 to 4, Audrey focuses on her writing. My number 1 priority during those time blocks is always crystal clear. And that's not to say that I am penny pinching my time and being so strict that I am immovable. But it's a lot easier to stay focused and stay on track with my goals when I always know what the most important thing is that I need to be doing. What priority am I serving in each of those time blocks? Self, family, work, or my writing? If we know that we're honoring the 4 most important parts of our lives and moving the needle forward toward our ultimate goals. So another thing that's important to do is to take a break and understand your why. And if you haven't heard of this, research Simon Sinek and the why. And he has some updated guidance about asking your close friends, not your family members, but some close friends that are super honest with you, and asking them why they're friends with you. Go ahead and search YouTube for his guidance on finding your why. But once you understand your why, you can come back. Look at how your why affects your priorities and your goals. It all starts to make sense when you understand your why. Then review your written desires and ambitions and consider how they complement and reflect your why. Next, you can define your goals for the rest of the year, the rest of the month, this week, and today. Another thing you can do to hone in even further, define your daily top priority for the rest of the week. So each day, you should have a singular top priority. Today, it might be that every day this week, your top priority is to watch all of the available sessions for the Fiction Marketing Academy 3.0, which would be an excellent example of a daily top priority that honors your writing. Next, you can time block and define your time block top priorities for each day throughout the entirety of the week, so you always know what is the most important task you need to do, and then ensure that it aligns with your top 4 priorities. Next, you can set your goals. Once your priorities are clear and you understand how to set it up within your time blocking, we can reset your goals. You can be as ambitious as you want, but the most important thing you should do is prioritize any and every goal that you define. You shouldn't have 10 goals. I'm partial to the number 3, especially when it comes to goals, but you can have more or fewer. Just don't go too crazy. The most important thing is that you have a clear priority for those goals. You should have a single number 1 goal, a second most important goal, a third most important goal, and so on and so forth. You can't have 2 number 1 goals. You cannot serve 2 masters. Think of it that way. If your number 1 goal is to finish the book you're working on, then it cannot compete with also having an equally important goal of outlining your next book. They are not equally important. You have to pick one. You have to decide on what is the most important and the most impactful on your most meaningful goals, and that those goals align with your priorities and align with moving you toward your ultimate vision, your ultimate goal for your life, yourself as a person, yourself as a member of your family, yourself as a writer. How do those things align? So anyway, this might feel like a repeat, but just like we do in literature, we can use repetition as a tool to emphasize what's really important. So, I want you to go ahead and write your goals again, now that you've had more time to think about priorities, honoring the 4 most important parts of your life, and what you really want from life, especially as a writer. Once you've rewritten your goals, have you noticed any that have changed at all? If so, take a moment to explore, deep dive into those changes. Why you changed those goals or altered them slightly, either slightly or significantly. It may reveal something very important to you about what you truly desire. And that is always worth a couple minutes to explore. When it comes to adaptive planning, the most important tool you have at your disposal is your mind, and you need to have a flexible mindset. Part of a flexible mindset is resilience. This skill is crucial. It's absolutely critical to develop because it will be your buoy in the most difficult times. And you can alter your mindset when it comes to planning. A plan that you create, whether you write it in your planner, whether you type it out on your calendar, whether you do your time blocking for the day, it is a guideline. It is not a staircase to a milestone. I'm sure you've heard the phrase, success is not a straight line. Your plan is a guideline. Your plan helps you structure your life so that you can control it, not let the chaos control you. You set a plan, you set your determination, and if a schedule does not work for you and you find it is constantly interrupted, all you have to do is adjust the plan, adjust the schedule, adjust the guidelines that carry you through the day, and find what might work better. This is where that experimentation comes in that I talked about earlier. Think of planning as ideas rather than edicts. You do not need to follow a plan to the letter in order to be successful. A plan just reminds you of what you're working for, of how important your goals are for you. And most importantly, the entire universe is not going to break down if your plans need to change. So stay flexible. Use your plans like a guideline so that you have a structure, so that you always know what your top priority is, so that you can section your day into blocks that honor the 4 most important areas of your life. And you can make progress towards what's most meaningful for you and your sense of self in your life. When you start treating your top 4 life priorities as the cardinal directions in your life, it is so much easier, so much mentally and emotionally lighter to adjust to the unexpected, to adapt to hardship and adversity, to move forward with grit and determination. It takes practice, undoubtedly, but when you know those top 4 priorities that guide your ship, you will always know what you need to do to be the person, the writer, the family member that you want to be. Whether it's writing the next book, whether it is getting that book to market, whether it is improving your marketing game so that your book royalties can pay the bills while you weather the hardship. If marketing is the number 1 priority in the writing bucket, and you know that when things get hard, it's a lot easier to stay on track and actually grow in that area, which is one of the hardest things that many authors struggle with, because it's hard to stay focused on marketing when things get tough. But you can focus, buckle down, learn what you need to learn, especially here at the Fiction Marketing Academy, and stick with it. Pick what you're going to work on and stick with it. Make that your writing priority. Next, systems. No matter your priority, writing, editing, publishing, marketing, you can use a planner or another planning system. Whatever you use, you should make sure it has a calendar. Okay? Whether it's a computer calendar, you use a paper planner or a digital planner that has calendars in it. Asana has a calendar tool that is fantastic, even on the free side. And you can even use something like Google Calendar. As long as you have a calendar, so you have reminders about important dates, and you can use time blocking through your day or use time blocking even through your weeks and months, you have a rich tool to help you visualize where your time needs to be spent, where you need to focus yourself in order to honor your priorities and your goals. It's important to also set limits and use timers for your time spent doing non-priority things like scrolling social media, checking email and messages, or consuming news, because we know that can be a rabbit hole, just like all of this. Set your limits, use timers to remind you when it's time to start a new time block and to keep you from losing precious hours on non-productive things that don't move us toward our goals. Another useful system you can implement is limiting how many yeses you give each week. Sometimes this depends on the week. If you have a deadline one week, you may not want to have a lot of yeses available. But if you have a pretty slow week planned, you can have more yeses. And the idea behind the yeses is that people will ask you for things. They will ask you for help. And although we love to help people, we have to help ourselves first, as we have already established. So you need to make sure that the number of yeses you are giving doesn't require you to make sacrifices towards living fully and keeping your life from being chaotic. The final system that I recommend you implement is using reviews and plan adjustments. Every day before I go to bed, I check my planner for the next day. And whether I had a good day or not, I adjust my plan for the next day. I can either do more or I can do less. I can shift tasks from one day to another day. At least I know what I'm doing the next day, and I can easily adjust using my erasable friction pens. You can also do reviews on a weekly, monthly, quarterly, and yearly basis. And the idea is that you're not just saying, oh, things went good or they didn't go good, but you're also saying what went right, what could have gone better, and why. What can I do to mitigate these challenges that I faced in the future so that they don't have as great an impact on me hitting my goals next week or next month or next year. During these reviews, after you know what went right and what went wrong, you can adjust your plans for the future. And it makes it a lot easier to fine-tune things so that your plans can become pretty good, pretty solid guidelines for how your days are going. With practice, this almost becomes a science. Building your buffers. It's time to talk. Now that we've discussed implementing systems for adaptive planning, we can talk about building buffers. Time is not your only buffer for your goals when you want to set deadlines, but you can use it. You can also use technology to be your buffers. Again, we want to use timers and alarms, daily reminders. Another thing you can do is track your time. I use an app called A Tracker Pro so that I can easily see where my time is going and make adjustments to how I plan and spend my day, and use these tools at my disposal to make sure I'm not spending time where I'm not proud to spend time. or where it's not benefiting me mentally or physically to spend time. But if I don't know those numbers, I can't make proper assessments about where my time is going. So it's really important for me to know my time. And I highly recommend that, as tedious as it may seem, you consider tracking your time for a while too. Track your progress too. It's pretty easy in Canva to make progress bars so you can see how close you are to your goals and how far you've already come. Sometimes we get so caught up in the distance between where we are and our goal that we forget to see how far we've already come from the start. So using those progress trackers can be really helpful in giving us that perspective that improves our resilience and a healthy mindset around goal achievement. Next, document those reviews we talked about and any changes that you make to your plans. This is helpful because if you can see that there's a pattern to your plan changes, then you know that you need some serious adjustments in the future so that you're not changing your plans in the same way every week or every month or every day. Another good buffer, not just for hitting your goals, but for your mental and emotional health, is ensuring that you have a strong support system. This can be family, but not everybody's family understands. And not everyone's friends understand either. They can be supportive, but they don't really get it like other authors do. So if you can have other authors be part of your support system, you'll be ahead of the game. Groups really help. If you can have a local writing group, or you can have a writing group that meets virtually on Zoom or even on Discord, then it'll help you stay more in touch with writing in your daily life. It's especially helpful if the group meets on a regular basis. So why would we want to be part of a group? Groups help us stay motivated. They provide external incentive. And when your writer friends see you struggling, they're more likely to say something and recognize the signs because most of us have experienced it before. Your friends, especially your writing friends, they don't want to see you burn out. We all know what happens, but if they can see the signs and help you readjust your plans, they can help be that buffer between you and burnout, the kind of burnout that takes you so far off track from your goals that you lose sight of them on the horizon. So build in those buffers, think about what you can do to implement your adaptive planning, understand your goals and priorities, day to day, week to week, month to month, so on and so forth. As long as you know what your priorities are, you can always adjust the plan. If you know what the one most important thing is you need to do every day, you will move that needle every single day. You are bound to grow. You are bound to make progress in your writing, in your publishing, in your marketing. If you buckle down and stick to it, you will see the growth you have been dreaming of. So here is a really short reading, listening, or tool list that I have put together for you guys. I am absolutely in love with Atomic Habits by James Clear. Grit by Angela Duckworth is fantastic. This is all about perseverance. And what's interesting is that it reveals through studies, talent is not an indicator of success, but determination, discipline, or grit really is. So you'll definitely want to pick that up. Getting Things Done by David Allen. This book, for a nerd like me, is so much fun. It is something I can't get enough of. All of these books I've listened to multiple times. The 6 Habits of Growth by Brendon Burchard is another one that I highly recommend because if you have been feeling stuck in a rut, your wheels are spinning, this is what's going to help you get through it. This book is so inspirational. You can't help but walk away feeling fantastic and ready to tackle the day. The 4 Disciplines of Execution by Chris McChesney. This book is a little bit drier, but it has serious gold in there if you're willing to take the time to read or listen to it. One of my favorite tools is Asana. A close second is Google Calendar. But Asana has a free plan that is incredibly robust and works as both a calendar and a project management tool for writers. Well, for anybody, but it is so helpful for building project plans, publishing plans, and marketing plans, and even for building social media content calendars for your author platform. I also am the creator of the Ultimate Authorship Planner and the Yearly Authors Planner. They're both the same, except that the Ultimate is not dated and the Yearly is dated for each year. So we have the 2024 Authors Planner this year that is ready to order. Now, thanks for staying through to the end, friends. I love having conversations with you guys. I love doing these live, but when I can't do them live, I always want to make sure that you know that you can reach out to me. Sometimes these concepts can feel pretty broad. A lot of people get stuff out of this, and I really hope you do too. But if you have any questions about how you can become more resilient, how you can apply adaptive planning, especially when it comes to hitting your marketing goals for your work, go ahead and email me or hit me up on social media or head to my website. I have a lot of tools that you can use for planning and for improving your marketing game. Whatever you need, reach out to me and either I have it or I know somebody who does. So I love having conversations and I want to hear from you. Go ahead and tag me on social media and go ahead and tag me on social media with your biggest takeaway from today's presentation. I really hope you loved it and I can't wait to hear from you.